Ellen, can you hear us?
I am here, Mr. Chairman.
I don't know what happened before, sorry.
Oh, no problem at all. Well, we got everybody on board now.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Technical difficulties for me as well.
Oh, no problem. Okay, good. Very good. All right. So Chris, I guess we'll call the meeting to order here at 7:36 p.m. And I'll read the adequate notice statement. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the board in preparation of the 2021 annual meeting notice, which sets forth the date, time, and place of this meeting, and by properly posting such notice and forwarding the notice to those designated newspapers and persons requesting meeting notices. Moreover, in order to comply with the national and state declarations of emergency related to COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the municipal land use law and the Open Public Meeting Acts and the emergency remote meeting protocols for local public bodies set forth in NJAC 539-1, this meeting is being held virtually on a web-based platform with remote public access. All right, and behind me is a tiny little flag over there, so we'll do our Pledge of Allegiance. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America
and to the
the
republic
republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everyone. Is there a roll call, Chris?
Sure. Chairman Anderson,
Present.
Vice Chairman Brinkerhoff,
Present.
Councilmember Little,
Here.
Ms. Paulson Alvarez,
Here.
Ms. McNeil,
Here.
Mr. Delory,
Here.
Mr. Zucker,
Here.
Mr. Perella,
Here.
Mr. Fiore,
Here.
Mr. Kelly,
Here.
Mr. Ashman,
Present.
and for the record, our board attorney, Mr. Warner, is present, and you have a quorum. You can proceed.
Great, thanks very much. Well, just before we go to the minutes, as maybe some of you are aware, we have two of our groups tonight, applicants requesting their cases to be carried, Mountain View Development of New Jersey LLC, and then Beechwood of Summit LLC. And Steve always likes to be more specific about the extension with regard to further notice or without further notice. So Steve, maybe you can make sure it's done properly.
I'll do my best, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Yes, Mountain View Developments of New Jersey, LLC, 74 Templar Way. That application is being carried without further notice to our next meeting, which I understand to be July 26, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. The same remote access. Please stay tuned to any changes in the passcode or access codes. And we do have a time to act extension in writing, I believe, Chris, we got that
That's correct.
from council, and it's, is that an indefinite extension of time to act?
That was Mr. Sheehan consented via email.
Okay, thank you. And then it's going to sound like deja vu all over again. Beechwood at Summit LLC, 43 Woodland Avenue, also carried to our next scheduled meeting, July 26, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Again, same remote access. And also the council for that application provided us in writing with an extension of time to act indefinitely, if you will. So we're covered on both those matters. Neither of those matters will be heard tonight.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mr. Warner. Before we get to the meeting minutes and the application with regard to our first meeting in the council chambers, at this point, we're thinking it would be the September meeting for the planning board. I understand that the zoning board will also meet in person in September. One of the reasons we picked September was because on advice of counsel, good advice of counsel, he felt that, for example, the Beechwood at Summit LLC, the 43 Woodland, if you had begun in a Zoom format, neighbors and others who wish to comment would perhaps be more comfortable in a Zoom format, so that, starting a case in a Zoom format, we should finish in a Zoom format. And that's partly why we're extending it to September. with regard to Mountain View and Summit Sport and Spine, they would be new and would not necessarily require us to continue on with the Zoom format. Anything you would add there, Mr. Warner?
Simply that if either of any cases that are going to be heard in person would have to have the MLUL notice done as in person to ensure accurate notice. So for now, at least, all these are anticipated to be remote access hearings, at least for the next couple of hearing dates.
I guess part of the objective here is to avoid any potential challenges with regard to the format, that might be an issue for some. So, all right, I think that's, I appreciate, I spoke to almost all the planning board members with regard to their thoughts about returning to the council chamber. And I think that's maybe going to work well for most of us at this point. So let's talk about the meeting minutes. Anyone have any comments on the meeting minutes for the Wednesday, May 12th special meeting that we had with Primrose? Any comments, additions, deletions, suggestions? Hearing none, could I have a motion to approve in a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Right, all in favor?
Aye. Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none.
And with regard to the minutes for May 24th, 2021, anyone have any comments, additions, deletions, corrections to those? I have one question, and that is actually in the recital as it relates to the pending ordinance. In the parentheses at the bottom of that paragraph, that's in bold, on the first page of the meeting minutes, it says amend DRO - prohibit sale, growth, and distribution of recreational marijuana. Do you know, Chris or Steve, if that's been done or how that's done or when it gets done? It may be all finished at this point where it says amend the DRO. Is that something that Joe does or we do? We have to do, I guess we've done it, and the council has done it via this ordinance. But I assume actually somebody has to go in and make changes to the online version and to the hard copy, I guess.
Yeah, well, that would be the codification, certainly, but once the ordinance is adopted, it's in effect, but I'll defer to Chris perhaps on the codification of the ordinance.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that's usually done in conjunction with the clerk's office, and I'm not sure if it's fully been executed at this time, but our zoning official does have the amendments and is able to enforce the DRO as reflected.
Okay, great. That's very helpful. Thanks. That was my only comment on that particular meetings for the 24th. And before we leave the meeting minutes topic, I want to thank Chris for doing a terrific job on these. They're getting very crisp and very precise, Chris, and how you were able to get a page and a half on the meeting on the 12th. I'm not sure, but you did it, and it's well done, and I appreciate it very much. But we've been warned that the resolution might be slightly longer than these meeting minutes.
Only slightly.
That's right. All right. So
I'm sorry. I apologize if I missed it. Did we get the motion second
No,
on
yeah,
the second?
I'm just going to ask for a motion and a
Okay.
second to approve the meeting minutes from the 24th.
Second.
All right. Thank you very much.
Chris, just for the record, I was absent that meeting, so I abstained.
I have your abstention noted. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Chris.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none.
Great. All right, we're ready for our first applicant tonight, Chris, unless anyone has any other business. I think we're ready to hear from the Summit Sport and Spine applicant, 308 Springfield Avenue.
Promoting them now.
All right. So my name is Mike Smara. I'm with Summit Sport and Spine LLC.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mike, if you can hold 1 minute, please. We do have a couple of pieces of predicate business before we get the
Oh, sorry.
application rolling. No problem. I suspect the entire board appreciates you're jumping in and being ready to go. But just for the record, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I did have an opportunity to review the notice, found the content to be sufficient, found it to be timely served, certified mail on June 16, published on June 17, thus at least 10 days prior to this evening. So the board does have jurisdiction to hear the application. Since the applicant is an entity, this particular entity being an LLC, the court rules require and the MLUL requires that an attorney present the application on behalf of the applicant. Otherwise, it would technically constitute the unauthorized practice of law, and we certainly wouldn't be a party to same. So I believe there is counsel here as well. And certainly, Mr. Chairman, whenever I'm called upon to do so, I'll swear in all the witnesses.
Yeah, please go ahead, Mr. Winter.
Mr. Samara, I believe you have Mr. Ferrante as your counsel for the applicant?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, and Mr. Ferrante, is it possible, do you have video as well as audio?
I hope so.
Okay, because if you do, we can't see it right now.
I don't know quite. Let me see.
Sure. There we go. We got you. Oh, we lost
Okay.
you.
Wait, I'll come back on there. So
There you go.
Okay,
you got me.
Yeah.
we got you. I'm gonna
Hi,
hold on to
everybody. You all
you
look great.
now. Okay, Mr. Ferrante, do you have any witnesses other than Mr. Samara?
No, just Mr. Samaro.
Okay, and I'll swear him in then along with our board professionals, our engineer and planner. If all three of you will raise your right hand, please. I see, where's, oh. Where did
I'm
you go?
having trouble connecting, but I'm on my
Oh.
phone at the moment.
There you-
I can see
Okay.
you. Can you
That's
hear me?
okay. I'll take your representation that your right hand is raised. Do all three of you swear to God or affirm, now I can see it, that the truth, now see, you got me to blow it the first time in 25 years. Do all three of you swear to God or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes, I do.
Thank you all. And then I'll turn it back to the chair, who I suspect may turn it over to council.
Yes, Mr. Ferrante, please go ahead and take it from here.
Thank you. This is an application by my nephews, coincidentally, to operate a chiropractic and acupuncture studio on that 308 Springfield Avenue. It's a B business zone, and he's seeking a C variance for an additional parking space. And it is a permitted use as opined by Christina Anderson, the zoning officer. Her report is attached. Going down through everyone who was on the checklist, there doesn't seem to be any objection or any negative impact from this application that's been cited by any of the people that signed off. That includes the chief of police, the construction official, the city forester, the board of health, historic preservation, the city planner, and the parking services, who coincidentally have opined that this application or this C variance would not put a hinder on the municipal parking system, and there are no parking issues expected to be or resulting therefrom. It's a rather minor site plan. There is no construction. And as you know, the city requires a parking space in a business for every 150 square feet of space. The space that's being rented is 450 square feet, and there is no on-site parking available or proposed, since the building pretty much takes up the entire footprint. We're asking that the applicant is also proposed. He's going to purchase 2 parking permits for himself and his secretary, and the patients. There won't be more than 2 patients at a time in there. generally speaking. And they'll be able to park almost directly across the street in the public parking adjacent to the real estate office across the street. And Mr. Samaro, if you have anything to say, now's your time to say it.
That
Can you
was,
hear me?
yep, that was great. That was everything. Thank you.
Well, if I, Mr. Ferrante, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Yeah, please go
With
ahead.
your,
There's a little,
with your
couple
permission, we do have a
things
few
I'd like to
reports from Mr. Burgess, our planner, Mr. Dower, our engineer, and that you may wish to address some of the items that call for testimony and/or conditions of approval should the board grant approval. Either, and you may wish to do so through Mr. Samaro, even though it's, I take it going to be fact testimony from Mr. Samaro, as he's, I'm assuming, not an engineer or a professional planner, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Why don't we hear from Mr. Burgess, our planner, and then Mr. Dorr, our engineer, and then board members can ask questions thereafter.
Okay. We had only raised one issue, and it's really not a significant one. The prior use required 2.2 parking spaces. This use technically requires 2.9 parking spaces. Within the context of the municipal land use law and the borough and the city master plan, I don't believe that differential represents a substantial detriment to the public good or a substantial impairment to the intent of the master plan or ordinance. I'm only saying this, I know it sounds like I'm actually testifying on behalf of the applicant, but just to expedite matters from a planning perspective, it's a nominal differential in terms of what was required by the previous tenant compared to this tenant. That's the only issue we had pointed out in our report.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Mr. Dorr.
And I just had three questions. One was whether or not there's going to be any signage, and if I assume that the applicant would comply with the ordinance for signage.
He will.
And then lighting, is there any proposed changes to the lighting on the exterior of the building?
No.
Okay, and the only other question was the meters that are the parking spaces in front. Does the applicant know what the time limit is on those meters? Whether they could be
40
used?
minutes. I think it's 40 minutes.
Okay, so they possibly could be used for patients or not?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, maybe Mr.
That would-
Samaro, who's the fact witness and will be operating the chiropractic office, can confirm your representation, Mr. Ferrante.
Okay. Mr. Samaro, do you confirm my representation with respect to the time on the meters and the fact that your customers will be able to use those meters if they're empty, if the spaces are empty?
Yes, confirmed. 45 minutes would be pretty slow for me. So that should be sufficient time.
Okay, I had no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Mr. Dorr. Any members of the board have questions of Mr. Samaro as it relates to this application? One of the questions I had was just a simple confusion as it relates to the addresses, whether it's 308 or 306. And I don't know whether Mr. Nicola can straighten that out, or it just was a question that I had because it seems a little bit inconsistent in the paperwork that we got.
Yeah, so it looks like it's 306 Springfield on the tax record, and it may have a 308 Springfield mailing address, and that might be where the confusion in the paperwork comes in. But the tax assessor's office, who did the property owners list, indicated 306 Springfield.
All right.
Bill, if you look at the building is 306, but that address, it's on Chris's, the photo, one of the exhibits on Chris.
Yeah.
The actual the building is 306, but the mailing address, like Chris said, it says 308
I
in front
see.
of the sign.
Window.
Yeah, you're right, Andy. I see
There's
that.
3 units there.
I see.
Yeah.
that.
I think the store was
308,
split.
10, I think.
I think the store was split.
306, 308, and 310. Did Jay just say that?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the questions I had maybe for I don't know whether it's who would have this information, but perhaps it might be Chris or maybe Joe. Would it relate to parking on the side streets? We certainly wouldn't want to see any of this parking shuttled off to Irving Place. And I just wondered if there is parking allowed on Irving Place. Anybody know that? I didn't find that out today prior to this. Irving Place, perpendicular to Springfield Avenue and just behind the next street to the east. I just want to be sure that parking occurs in meters, and I understand the applicant has said that they intend to purchase some parking meters for him and his employee. And I just want to be sure that it doesn't spill over onto Irving Place. That's really the only question I had.
Could potentially spill onto Waldron more than Irving, probably. That tends to be where people will park. Locations.
Right. And parking is permitted on one side of Waldron.
Yeah.
On the church side of Waldron.
Yep.
I believe Mr. Samara is going to direct his patients to park in that lot behind Posteria, that large lot next to the real estate. There's a driveway there. That's pretty convenient.
Is that public parking, I guess?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Parking for the businesses, but you're aware, it gets pretty busy, during certain times, and they have the folks there that direct the cars.
Okay.
Could potentially be diversion onto Waldron, which is, a lot of folks walking into that part of town will park on Waldron, so.
I understand.
Yeah.
I think, Mr. Fronti, that's a good, good point. I think I'd like to, if possible, the applicant to stipulate the fact that he'll advise his patients not to park on those side streets.
He certainly will.
Mr. Chairman, may I
Yeah.
jump in here? I
Councilmember Lip.
think the most convenient and accessible public parking to that area would be the DeForest lots behind West Elm. Those are usually, that's the largest lot nearby. Also, the upper levels of the tier garage are not far from that. And there's often parking in the upper levels of the tier garage near the train station. But the employee parking spaces are elsewhere. The paid employee parking spaces would be the K lot and some of the other areas where employees from the downtown can purchase parking permits.
And I guess as tough as it is to get in and out of the bank lot, that may be a possibility also for his Bank Street lot for his patients as well.
But if his patients could be directed to use the municipal parking lots and not the side streets, that would be advisable.
Okay, will. All right, great. Any other board members have questions of Mr. Samora?
If no board, I'm sorry, board members do.
Just wanted to make it clear, I don't think that the parking behind La Posteria is public parking. I think that is a private consortium for just those stores. So just so that you know, when you advise your clients, I don't know if that's really a parking lot that you can utilize.
That's not a public parking lot. That's
right. That's what I'm saying.
For the Central Barber, the Posteria and all that. Yeah.
And they ask you when you go in, what are you utilizing? And it has to be one of those right around that parking lot.
It's Posteria, the carpet store, whatever.
Central Barber. It's all them right on that. Yeah. It's not a public lot.
The dance studio as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Well,
there are plenty of other options in town, so it'll be fun.
So that's
if you read the parking services agency's comments, right. she says where to park. So
yeah.
Yep, and she says there's sufficient parking, so I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mr. Fox says that his client will stipulate to that, so that's good.
He will.
Yeah. Any other questions from the board or from our consultants?
Just a couple of quick ones, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you.
The signage, I know you stipulated that the signage would comply with the ordinance, and we appreciate that, and that'll be a condition of approval should the board approve the application, as I suspect they will. But the signage plans that were submitted, is it your intention that the signage be the same or substantially similar to the 2 pages that were submitted?
Mr. Samara?
You have to speak out loud.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And regardless, it'll be fully compliant with the ordinance, correct?
Absolutely.
And the representations that were made on the floor plans with respect to one full-time, one part-time employee, 2 patients max at one time, 20 patients per day. Those are your representations under oath for purposes of the record and any resolution, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. And you may well have established the negative criteria through the professional planner. But I wonder, and I don't know if who I'm asking this question, if this is a C1 undue hardship argument, as in there's no 3 spaces available on site, or if this is a benefit substantially outweigh the detriments to provide adequate parking, or would the applicant be submitting that it's both?
I think he's submitting it as both, more the latter than the former.
The latter than the former. Okay. All right. Mr. Burgess, anything you wish to weigh in on that, if I may?
Well, I hate to argue with attorneys, but I think it's a C1 more than a C2, technically speaking.
Well, you're not arguing with this attorney, Mr. Burgess. I would concur.
Oh, I know better than that.
But in any event, the board may tell us, assuming it's a grant. But I have nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ferrante or Mr. Samar, anything in addition you'd like to say this evening?
No, I'd just like to thank you all for your kind attention.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, and we certainly do have to open it up for any questioning and comments to the public, as I suspect the chair was about to do, and I apologize for.
Oh, it's all right. No, that was the next step for sure. And Chris, do we have any members of the public present tonight wishing to weigh in on this?
I see Mr. Getzendanner in attendance, and I do not see Mr. Getzendanner's hand up at this time.
Okay. Mr. Getzendanner, if you can hear us, raise your hand on the Zoom in the bottom margin at the bottom there, if you wish to speak. Okay. Okay, apparently not. He's just listening in, which is good. We always appreciate that. So I think at this point, Mr. Warner, shall we, hearing no more questions from the board, and it sounds like Mr. Ferrante and Mr. Samara have wrapped up their testimony, and no more questions from our planners and no questions from the public. I think we're ready to receive a motion from any board member with regard to this application.
Sure. And of course, no comment from the public. So I take it there'll be a motion to grant the minor site plan with the parking variance on a C1 and or C2 basis with all the stipulated 2 conditions, including the signage being consistent with that which was submitted, the representations contained on the floor plans, the direction by the applicant to all employees as to the appropriate employee parking spaces as set forth by Councilwoman Little, and the designation by the applicant to all patrons to utilize the appropriate public municipal parking lots, as were also set forth by Councilwoman Little and other board members. And I believe that's all the stipulated 2 conditions.
All right.
So moved.
All right. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Nicola, can we have a voice vote?
Oh, to be a roll call, but absolutely.
Yeah, roll call. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Vice Chairman Brinkerhoff,
Yes.
Councilmember Little,
Yes.
Ms. Paulson Alvarez,
Yes.
Ms. McNeil,
Yes.
Mr. Delory,
Yes.
Zucker,
Yes.
Mr. Perrella,
Yes.
Mr. Fiore,
Yes.
and Chairman Anderson.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Fronte. Thank you, Mr. Samara. Best of luck in your new enterprise.
Thank you all.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I don't know that we have any other business for the board. Anything, Mr. Warner or Mr. Nicola, that comes to your mind?
Nothing off the top of my head,
Our
so.
next meeting is, regularly scheduled meeting is Monday, the 26th of July here. And we, 7:30 PM via Zoom format again. And perhaps we'll see one or two of the applications that we're requesting to be carried next month. Anything on the agenda, Chris, that's coming our way in addition to those?
These are the only two that are outstanding at this time. It always changes as we go through the month, but
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
now that's it.
All right, great. Well, at this point, can I have I regret to ask for a motion to adjourn, but if someone really wants to, could someone make a motion to adjourn and give me a second? Thank you all for being here, by the way, tonight, and I appreciate you showing up on such a hot, uncomfortable evening.
Motion to adjourn?
A second? John, looks like Mr. Zucker seconded. All right,
Second.
Mr. Burgess, Mr. Dorr, all board members, and Ms. LaRosa, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Good night.
Mr. Chairman, my apologies again for
Night.
keeping you all waiting.
No problem, don't worry.
Have a great
No
evening.
worries.